What could you learn from an art biz coach? If you're anything like me, a lot. Alyson Stanfield helps ambitious visual artists build their businesses. She brings to the table a varied background that includes politics, museum curation, and art sales. In this interview, we discuss the power of ambition, the lost art of thank you notes, and the unique differences between art galleries and museums. Aspects I really hadn't thought about before. You'll also learn about the one thing you should never outsource and the powerful reason Alyson is compelled to help artists. I'm Bob Baker, and this is the Creative Entrepreneur Podcast, Season 2, Episode 18. So I am really thrilled to be speaking with someone who goes by the name of the Art Biz Coach. Talking about Alyson Stanfield. Hello, Alyson. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Bob. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I am too. I want to find out more about your business, as I think we've been aware of each other for a while, and this is the first time we've actually had a chance to chat. We have a mutual friend, at least one, in Joan Stewart, the publicity hound, and She was an early guest on this podcast series. And so let me start, instead of me reading a bio and trying to articulate who you are, let me just kind of put you on the spot. And if someone's meeting you for the first time and that typical little elevator pitch or whatever, and somebody says, "Oh, so what do you do, Alyson?" How do you answer that question?
So what I say is that artists hire me. Actually, I say ambitious artists. Ambitious artists hire me to help them gain recognition and sell more art.
Oh, cool. So yeah, you've obviously thought this through. You've been in business a long time.
I change it. It changes, right? And you see what works. And that ambitious part is really important to me now.
Yeah, I was going to say that is a key differentiator, because as you may know, my niche or my primary audience for a couple of decades or so has been musicians, because a lot of my books are on the topic of music marketing, although I've expanded with books for authors and for creative entrepreneurs of all types. Yeah, I realize that my audience, my target audience is not, or I actually refer to them as my ideal fans. My ideal, right. They're not just musicians, they're independently minded musicians who value education. I mean, I put a lot of, descriptors on there. But right. So what does ambitious artist for you mean?
Well, there are a lot of artists out there who love to make art, and I want them to be able to make art. And along the way somewhere, someone, maybe their mom, told them, or it's usually more like a well-meaning sister-in-law or something. So you should sell these, which is great and lovely, and I'm sure it comes out of love. But what happens is that once some artists start asking for money for their art, everything changes and the joy is left out of it.
Right.
I can't help them with that. I mean, that's something that, it really has to come from within you. You really have to want to how competitive the music business is. And I'm sure you know how competitive the art business is.
Sure.
Even in the last, I got out of school in the early 90s. And so even in those 25 years, it's changed so much, because anyone can hang a shingle and be an artist. You got to want it really bad. And so sometimes artists come to me kind of half-hearted. I know I should be selling these. I know I should be doing that. Can you help me? And they really don't want to do the work. And I can't help them.
Right.
Without the motivation. And I can't give them motivation.
Right. And some of my workshops for years now, I have this section where I talk about hobby mode versus career mode. And they're different things. And I think a lot of the frustration, a lot of that whole stigma of the struggling or frustrated artist, I think comes from having mixed modes. In your head, you're thinking, I should be doing more. I want to be a popular musician or a best-selling author, or having my, be a full-time visual artist. but your actions and other aspects of how you approach it are more in hobby mode, and there's nothing wrong with accepting that you're in hobby mode, and
Exactly. It's what brings you joy. And I think it's really important to recognize what you want from your art. Like, I just want to paint. I just want to throw pots. And I don't need to make money from it. So, what the heck? Just enjoy it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that's not what I'm for.
Right. Yeah. You're for the people that are career minded, ambitious. They're like, I'm ready. I just need the tools. I need a little direction, a little coaching. And that's where you step in and help them clarify those things. Right.
Right. And there are some ambitious artists who just want to get better at their art. And that's someone else entirely too. Because I don't do that either.
Because that's specifically why, and your website is artbizcoach.com. And so you have it right there biz is short for business coach. You're not going to teach them how to paint or whatever, but you can teach them how to grow their business.
Right, exactly.
So I'm curious about your background, like what led you to this. So even though we're going to talk about some, I'd be happy to, if we organically come across or are able to talk about some of the best practices that the advice that you give to some of your clients. This is really about you and your journey. I'm curious about, because you built it's called the creative entrepreneur. So you built a business in the arts, coaching others. But how did you get there real quickly? Like, did you start off as an artist? Were you someone who always gave advice to people, or tell me a little bit about that story.
I love to tell people what to do. But really what happened was I started undergraduate school as a painting major, but I quickly went into art history. I just liked art history better, and I was better at it. And then I got my master's degree in art history, and I worked in art museums for 10 years as a curator and an educator. And then what happened is I just wanted to live in Colorado. So I packed up the bag, sold off a lot of my stuff, rented a U-Haul, a tiny apartment in Denver, and started an art consulting business. And I don't know if lots of your listeners might not be familiar with that, but basically an art consultant is someone who buys art for other people.
Oh, okay.
And so it might be a corporation. Those are more art advisors now, but it more likely is a new building, a hospital, a hotel, something like that. I thought that would be fun. I could just go around and find artists for people. That would be great. Two things happened. One, I'd never run a business before. And two, it was 9/11, like 3 months before 9/11. And so no one wanted to even talk about buying art. And I didn't want to even talk about buying art at the time. But what happened right after that and during it is that artists that I had known through my museum career heard that I was starting this business, and they were coming to me for help. And they said, maybe you could help me. I want you to know about my art, blah, blah, blah. And so I turned it into Art Biz Coach. That happened less than a year later. So like I tell people, I could not have made this job up at the time. That was 2001, 2002. And I could not have made it up. It came to me.
Right. And over the years, I've interviewed hundreds of people in different fields, and there's definitely some consistent themes, and that's definitely a common path. Is that there is no path. You discover it as you go. You take action. You pay attention to the results, but it's like being aware of what people are coming to you and seeking. And not everything that maybe people ask you for is within your wheelhouse or whatever you want to call it is right for you. Like you said, if somebody comes to you how to be a better painter, that wouldn't be your thing. But you paid attention to those artists that were seeking advice, and you said, "Hey, I can do this."
I can help that. Well, this is one of the reasons why you will never hear me coach someone to follow their passion.
Oh yeah, that's been something that I've that's sort of a debate, because that is a common thing. Yeah, follow your passion. I think even Elizabeth Gilbert she has a book out called Big Magic, which I really like.
Great book.
Which she addresses these things, and So what's your take on the follow your passion? Why would you never get that advice? I think I know, but I want to hear your spin on it.
Because if I was young, or if I was even older and struggling with if someone said, just follow your passion, I would have like knocked them up the side of the head, because I like lots of things. And most creative people do. Most creative people, my artists often struggle with focusing on a body of work because they like to do this, they like to do that. And when someone says, just follow your passion. And the other thing is something we just discussed is my passion is art, but I have absolutely zero passion for making money from it. So you have to have, if you don't have that passion too, it's incongruent. I heard a talk a number of years ago by Cal Newport, who wrote the book So Good They Can't Ignore You.
Right.
And he has a blog called Study Hacks, and he's a professor. And it was a great talk, and it was like, yay, finally someone said this. And he, through all of his research, he discovered that people become passionate about things when they become good at it. And so you might not have a passion for accounting, but if you've done it for a while, there are aspects that you grow to love. And I think that is often overlooked. Like just doing, like you said, do the work, get in there, do the work, take action, and you will find something to be passionate about. So that's why I say that.
Cool. It's sort of related to that. I don't know if you're aware, but last year I published a book called The Empowered Artist, and it was very different than other books of mine because it was for creative people of all types, and it's more about mindset and work ethic and best practices of successful people in all creative fields. In there, I pointed out that the world doesn't owe you a living simply because you want to do something or you want to make money. It's something. So there, you could dedicate yourself. You could be passionate about it. You could, follow all the steps and all the books and the workshops and still not be able to support yourself. Now, and so the world doesn't owe you a living. However, I think that you owe it to yourself to express yourself creatively and to give it a shot. If you have aspirations to, boy, I would love to make some money with this, or maybe someday it could happen. I mean, I've never been one of those people. I'm definitely more of a cheerleader than I am a naysayer. And so overall, my message is optimistic, and you should do this. Give yourself permission. I think so many artists err on the side of not giving themselves enough credit and they don't value their work enough. However, if you get too pumped up with that positivity, you could come to have this sense of expectation, or what do you call it? But I think you know what I'm talking about there.
I know. No, I think expectation. Actually, I talk a lot about like goals, having goals versus having expectations. Like I expect for these things to happen rather than actually setting a goal and doing the work is very detrimental to anyone's path.
And you have at least one book out yourself, too. Is it called I'd Rather Be in the Studio? Is that your only book thus far?
Yeah, it's in its 3rd edition. I'm not as prolific as you are. I actually write a lot of content for online classes, and that's where a lot of my writing goes into, and my blog. That's where a lot of writing goes into, and I'm sure some of it will become another book someday. But I'd Rather Be in the Studio, The Artist's No Excuse Guide to Self-Promotion. I swear I'm going to have a really short title for my next book. We affectionately call it Urbits. Yeah, I'd rather be in the studio.
Oh, I see. Okay. The acronym.
Yeah, it's really long. So that came out in 2008. And came out at 3rd edition last year.
Awesome. No, I have a lot of long titles, so I believe in in fully describing what it is and the benefit and working in keywords in an authentic, natural way.
I want a Malcolm Gladwell title.
Yeah, like, Blink.
Yeah. Blink. Yeah, right.
So cool. Well, let's see here. This is awesome. All right, Alyson. So that's a great kind of overview of your background and some of the philosophy that we both share here. But as you know, I like to ask my guests a similar list of questions to find out sort of what makes you tick and what got you to where you are. So if I could ask you to name 3 key things that were responsible for your success and the growth of your art biz coach business, what would those 3 keys be for you?
Well, the first is something, again, that we've already talked about, and that's ambition. I've always had this, I was born with it, this desire to be better, and not like better than everyone else, or not like in a competitive way, but just to be my best. And so when I worked in the museum, I was one of the few people that took work home every single night. And it was just always working long hours, no matter what I did. And so that's something, again, that I don't know how to teach. I don't know how to give people. It just came. It just is me. So that has got to be number one. The other two are work experiences. And the first one is I worked in the U.S. Senate.
Oh, wow.
In between undergraduate and graduate school. And my boss was a man named David Boren, who's now the president of the University of Oklahoma and has been for decades. But he was brilliant. He was a Rhodes Scholar, but he was also brilliant at relationships. People loved him at both sides of the aisle. And he walked down that Senate hall and waved at everyone. And he was a good old boy from Seminole, Oklahoma. He wrote thank you notes. I don't know. I sat right outside his office. So I saw all the stacks of thank you notes that went out every day by hand. And he still does that as president of the University of Oklahoma. To me, I don't give money to the University of Oklahoma, which is one of my alma maters, but I'll send him something. He'll write me a correspondence card, front and back, thank you note. He just was brilliant with relationships. And I learned, in politics, you can't help but learn about those things. And that was a different time, right? That was the 80s. Mm-hmm. So it was very different. But he was one of those, even at that time, people in Congress calling for bipartisanship. He wrote a lot about bipartisanship at that time.
Well, so he was like a mentor or a great example in your a role model, I guess, in your life.
He was a role model for. So when I teach artists how to promote their art, the thing I focus on is building relationships, because that's authentic, and especially people who are affluent. It's super important for them to have those relationships, to trust people. Mm-hmm. So he was a role model for how to build authentic relationships.
And I can totally relate to this as both a writer, author, a teacher, speaker, and an artist myself, and I have a feeling, so you, being in his presence and witnessing that, I imagine you incorporated it into your own relationships. You used it to build your own, not only your own business, but your friendships and so on. You incorporated that into your life, and now you're encouraging others to do the same. So it's not like, this guy did it, try it, but you're actually living it too. I live it.
I live it. To be honest, I was raised with that way too. I mean, I had to write thank you notes forever. I had to, right? You're young. You have to write thank you notes for everything. And I was raised to be polite and say, yes, ma'am. And no, I was raised that way. Mm-hmm. And so my mother was and is very gregarious. She's way more outgoing and extroverted than I am. And so some of that it's just been around me. Right. But working for him really cemented everything.
Reinforced.
Yeah, at a much bigger scale.
Hey, I just want to take a quick break from the interview to remind you about something that I like to call the empowered artist movement. Yes, this podcast is part of that movement, but there are other aspects to it. So let me give you a special website where you can go and visit and find out more. It is empartist.com. Just think about the first three letters of the word empowered, empartist.com. And there you'll find information about the Empowered Artist book and a great deal where you can get actually the paperback book shipped for free anywhere in the world, along with some other great digital download bonuses. In a particular interest, I have a very popular online course called 30 Ways to Become an Empowered Artist that you can get access to for free by just going to that page, scrolling down just a little bit, clicking the link where it mentions the course, and then all you have to do is sign up, and I'll send you information to get access to that course absolutely free. It features like 3.5 hours of the short video lessons that a lot of people have raved about and benefited from, and I would love to share it with you as well. So again, take a little break from the interview. You can go there now and visit it and check it out, empartist.com. I would love for you to join me in empowering musicians and writers and visual artists and creative people of all types around the planet through this movement, I would love for you to join us, empartist.com. And now we'll get back to the interview.
And then the third one is my work in the museum, because my role, even as a curator, but especially as an educator, was to connect the art to the people. So because the museum is all about interpreting, and my job was all about interpreting the works on view, whether it is through labels or lectures or kids' activities or whatever. So in that way, that experience really helps me with my clients, because I did, there's a lot of studies and work done about how people respond to art, how they take art in. And so I have that experience that other people might not have.
So you worked it sounds like you spent a lot of time working at a museum. Did you ever work at like a traditional or a high-end art gallery too?
No. I worked at a small gallery in Denver for a short period of time when I got here, but no.
So I'm curious. Yeah. So it sounds like your work in the museum. For some reason, I was thinking of that movie Night at the Museum. that's a different type. That's a history museum.
Yeah, right. Scary things happen there.
Yeah, that didn't happen at the art museum. No, but it sounds like, you got a lot of training and maybe access to information about, I love like the psychology of fans and why certain people are attracted to certain things and not others. And so it sounds like, a museum with a budget and all that, you have the ability to tap into those resources that help you figure out what attracts people here, which I think is really valuable. So here's my question, like a museum similar to art galleries seems like they are like the traditional established means for artists to get exposure. And I guess the parallel in the music world, which I've circulated in, would be record labels and concert venues. The parallel in the book world would be the best, being in bookstores and libraries and the best, the New York Times bestseller list. However, I'm like always been an indie guy, and so I'm always encouraging people, that's not the only route to success. So that's why, like a lot of artists over the years have used coffee shops, or they created their own events, or the alternate spaces. So I'm just figuring, with your background, what's your view on like going the non-traditional route in addition to those?
That's my favorite. Those are my favorite artists to work with, and here's why. Here's the difference between museums and art galleries. Yes, they're both established, and they're aspirational for a lot of artists, but museums are a lot more creative with how they include the public with the art. So, they have the lectures, they have gallery guides, they have interpretive programs, they have movies and so forth. So they expand the view of what's on the wall way more than any traditional art gallery that I know of has done. And so that's the world where I come from. So it's really easy for me to take that and apply it to artists going independent, which I think you have to do. And this is why some artists who are kind of young and green, and by young, I mean young in their careers, don't understand that you have to get attention before a traditional gallery will pay attention to you.
Yeah, in the music world, that's been a common mantra of mine, is when young bands want a manager. And I said, you're really not going to get a manager until you have something to manage.
Yeah.
Same thing with a booking agent or whatever, or an artist representative or whatever. I just realized now I'm learning something I never had occurred to me, and I'm assuming the difference between the museums, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the difference between museums and galleries is galleries are pretty much like for-profit commercial enterprises, where museums are typically like non-profits with some public funding quite often, and so they are more community and inclusive natured than an art gallery might be. Is that safe to say? What?
Yeah, well, art galleries are about making money. That's why they are in existence. And museums are about taking care of a collection for the long term and interpreting that collection for the community. And the numbers are museums are far more populist than most art galleries are.
Right, but in this,
most art galleries on the high end, I should say.
Yeah, because there are also like independent and kind of grassroots art galleries too. Right. But in museums, isn't it also that we were just saying, to really get in a museum, usually, unless maybe it's a local arts project or something, you still have to have earned your reputation and maybe have a history in art and being somewhat of a known entity to get into a installation or whatever you call or an exhibit.
Right. So there's two different things. There's being in a museum collection, having your art in a museum collection, and having an exhibition. You could have a solo show in a museum, or you could be part of a group show in a museum, and those are very different things than being in a collection. When a museum accepts your work into their collection, they're saying, we're going to take care of this forever.
Oh, wow.
So it's a huge investment. I mean, there are rules outlined by the American Association of Museum Directors about getting rid of your collection, and is very looked down upon to get rid of anything. So museums don't have room for just anyone. You do have to prove your mettle before you get into a museum collection.
Right.
Museum exhibitions are a different matter, but still, it has to be of value. It has to make sense with the rest of their programming, with their collection. There are lots of contemporary museums that aren't collecting museums.
Right.
But it has to be of value, and they have to be able to interpret it to the public in a way that it has intellectual value to the public too.
Wow. I'm learning a lot about museums here that I never even considered. But I assume for the most part, yeah, artists that are just kind of getting off their feet, getting out in public, a gallery or museum would not be the first place they would go to. Yeah,
never.
Yeah,
The indie route is the way to start out for sure.
Cool. So, as I mentioned just a little while ago, I'm definitely, optimistic. I love to focus on success stories and what's working and best practices and all that. However, we all face challenges. And so I always like to ask my guests to share a business or a creative challenge that you may have faced, how you came over or overcame it, and what you learned from it. So for you, Alyson, what would a challenge be?
What isn't a challenge?
Yeah, you have to just stick with one.
Every day. Well, I think it's important for artists to know that everyone has these challenges in a business. So I don't know about you, but my clients are like, I have to make art, and then I have to market it. And there's this complaint fest that goes on with it. And I said, you know what? Everyone has to do that. Exactly. I don't care what kind of business you have. Get used to it. Stop complaining about it. It's really boring to hear about. So we all have that. I have to create these programs. I have to market them. I have to take care of my clients, blah, blah, blah. And there are certain things that I like better than others. I was thinking that one of the things that might be unique it's not unique to my business, but a lot of artists this doesn't come up for them until it does. And that is the hiring the right people. So I don't have a big team, but I do hire, I hire graphic designers, I hire web designers, I hire bookkeepers, and I hire assistants. And I've made mistakes hiring assistants, which a lot of people, I'm sure, even people, my clients can relate to those mistakes. So it's a challenge to hire the right people. And it's so detrimental when you hire the wrong people.
And I guess when you hire the wrong people, you learn what you need to do next time to maybe choose the right person. Maybe that relationship with that person too is really important. Staying in touch with them, being clear about what you want them to do. Yeah,
I think I overcame this by working with a coach. I mean, and really getting help on the hiring process, and actually seeing her make mistakes, right? And learning from her mistakes. I think that I had an assistant whom I loved for years and years, but maybe like 4 years too long, like that much longer it went on.
Right.
And then another one that was at least a year too long. And she was with me only a couple of years, but I loved both of them. But they just weren't right for those positions.
Right.
So this is a good business lesson in everything, and that's having clarity about what you want and what you need, not just in the hiring process, but in your clients, like who you want to serve. It's just huge. And so this, my latest hire, I went in with a lot of clarity, mostly out of not having the clarity before and making the mistakes, right? So the last person that was an assistant with me, it wasn't her fault she didn't work out. It was my fault. I take full responsibility for that. I hired the wrong person. I didn't set the right expectations. There's that word again.
Oh, yes.
We didn't have a clear working relationship. And so with this new hire, I went in with my eyes wide open. She has exactly what's expected of her. We have a signed contract. We have steps for getting raises and having reviews for, personnel reviews. And it just feels really right. And she's amazing.
Great. There's two things that struck out at me. One is the art biz coach also has a coach, or you realize you're both a teacher and a student all rolled into one.
I actually would never hire a coach that didn't have a coach.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Because they have to be on the path to self. All my coaches have had coaches. They have to be on a path to growth too.
Wow. So people hire you as a coach, and then you have a coach, and then your coach has a coach. Oh, I got it.
Exactly.
It's infinity.
She does. She has more than one coach. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then the other, so I know this is a common thing that I hear too. Like we were talking about having a manager or whatever. Early on, everyone, like we said earlier, is frustrated by the overwhelm. And so I think really early on, somebody goes, oh, I'm not good at marketing. I just need to hire somebody. So while, yes, it's good to get help, don't you think getting help too early or thinking that you're just going to pay for other people to do stuff too early on before you really know what you're doing, is that really a good thing though?
I think it's good to know some things, but I also think it's good to know your limitations. You don't have to know how to build a website. Right. That is not a requirement. And you do need to know how to find your financial information. I mean, there are certain things that you need to know, but there are certain things that you don't need to know. You don't need to be able to do good graphic design. And just because you're a visual artist, by the way, does not mean that you know how to do graphic design. Most visual artists suck at it. I hate to say that word, but anyway, they do.
And you wouldn't want to outsource the relationship part of it too, like making connections with galleries and the people connections. You have to do that yourself.
You have to do that. And people, a lot of artists don't understand that. But as a former curator, I don't want to talk to someone's agent. There's no such thing as agents at that level. There's gallerists. There's, but when we had artists come in we would fly them in from New York or Canada or wherever to do an artist talk, we didn't talk to an agent. We talked to the artist. So you have to learn to be your best representative because you are the only one that's responsible for your success. And you cannot outsource the relationships. I love the way you put that.
Oh, good. Let's talk about books. So name a book that changed your life or that's really impactful. We're both authors here, but I'm sure we're both readers as well. I know that I am. If you could name one or two.
That was a hard question. But the book that just came to mind, actually brought it with me, and I know this is audio only, but it's Jack Canfield's book, The Success Principles. It came out in late, I didn't mean the last week of December 2004, and I got the hard copy. It's almost 500 pages, and it is well worn. So I got the hard copy and I got the audio version of it too. So this was late 2004. So I'm a couple years into my business, but it seems like it happened right at the beginning. But it has all the, I told you I'm ambitious. I don't need that. But this helped me, I think, with some softer things, some squishier things about balance, about saying no, turning people down. Not feeling sorry for yourself and pulling yourself up, taking action every day. He talks about his, Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen are the authors of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books, and about how, how many times he was rejected and about how they promoted it was just each one of them had to do 5 things a day. That's it. That's how they got the book out there.
Right.
And my gosh, you cannot argue with their success. So I think this book just has basic, really good business lessons in it. And it has, look, I'm going through it as we speak, but I hope that's okay. So it has 62 short chapters, short lessons, principles. Yeah. Each one is a success principle.
Awesome. I'm glad that you mentioned, because I actually have that book, and it is a favorite of mine as well. And back around 2008, I actually attended a couple of Jack Canfield's events, including the 7-day Breakthrough to Success. That was like really impactful back in 2008.
Neat.
There were like 400 people from all over the world there. And so, I got to chat with him and be really exposed to his stuff. And so, I'm a big fan of that book too. And in fact, it's funny because I thought about this earlier when you were talking about learning how to work with hiring people, and you actually said, I messed up. You said I take responsibility for, and that's like I do know that's the first principle in the book is take 100% responsibility for everything in your life. I might not like these circumstances that I'm in right now, but I caused them by all the decisions I made, the actions I took, the actions I didn't take. And that might seem debilitating to people, but I think when if you created the mess that you're in, that means you also have the power to create the solution.
Right. I think it should be empowering. I think it's on the debilitation scale. It is maybe debilitating because it's overwhelming. Like, oh crap, I can do anything. I can take any direction.
Right. And
so it can be paralyzing in that respect, but I think it should be empowering.
Which is why I called that book The Empowered Artist.
Yay! I love it.
That's a good word. And then this is sort of like a deeper kind of bottom. We've covered a lot of your background and what motivates you and all that. But if I were to ask, like, what truly bottom line motivates you to do what you do, in other words, what's your big why that you like to coach artists?
So I am luckily you gave me the questions ahead of time, but I do know the answer to this. This one's pretty easy. I learned about the world through art. And the reason that I switched from being a painting major to art history is because that's where I learned about history, geography, mythology, religion, different people of different backgrounds. It's how I discovered the world. And I believe that there are people who don't know the world based on facts, based on science and math and, rules, that we experience the world through softer things, through more emotional things. And I am here for those people, not just my clients, but for kids who are disenfranchised because they're told that they, have to learn science and math, but they really feel the world this other way. And so I am going to get emotional. I really believe that artists have a very special place in the world. And if I can help them to not just help themselves, but to help others explore the world through art, then that's what I'm in to do.
Wow, that's beautiful. That might be the first guest that nearly teared up here.
I do have some allergies going on too.
It's very powerful. So earlier I referenced, the hobby mode versus the career mode. And so just a real short recap of that. The hobby mode stuff, primarily, because I do this slide in a workshop where I talk about the 4 reasons that people create. The first 2 reasons are more for self-satisfaction. So one is like a sense of accomplishment. I feel I set a goal to create this painting or write this song. I did it. Wow, it feels good. I accomplished this thing. So it's an internal sense of satisfaction. Number 2 is recognition or credibility, like where somebody recognizes you. Oh, I heard that song. I love that song that you wrote. I thought that painting is amazing. And so this feels good too. It's self-satisfying because somebody else recognized you as being an artist, so that's cool. And I put those in hobby mode because if you only did those 2 things, that's the only reason you ever did art. It's perfectly fine. However, for me to shift into career mode, you start doing things for the benefit of others. This is number 3, where you realize the value and the impact that your art or your work has on other people. And that starts to be the thing that drives you even more so, or at least as well as the self-satisfaction. And then 4 is for money, which of course is part of career mode, which involves marketing and sales and learning all those, business types of things. And so, yeah, I think that you're doing it. That speaks perfectly to a bigger picture of how your work impacts other people.
I love the way you broke that down into those 4 things, because I generally just kind of combine them all and say that art is a form of communication, and that your art is incomplete until you share it with others and talk about it. Because you get the recognition, but there is something that it's full circle at that point. Because most artists that I know of are incomplete until they get the work out there and others start talking about it, appreciating it, and there you go, number 4, buying it.
Right. Yeah. So I guess it is the circle of creativity or life in the arts. It's so awesome. And so how about, that got deep there. So how about your future plans, Alyson? You mentioned Mark Victor Hansen earlier as being the co-creator of the Chicken Soup for the Soul. And I believe he coined the phrase big, hairy, audacious goal. I'm pretty sure.
Did he? The BHAG?
I think he did. So what's around the corner for you? Got any exciting projects we should know about, or what's on the horizon?
I have been for the last 2 years really refining that clarity thing, trying to stop being everything to everyone and really helping a number of people at a higher level. And that is what I'm going to continue to do, just really refining, getting clear so I can really help those clients, those ambitious artists. Yes. That have their own BHAGs and helping them get there. But my dream, you want to hear my dream?
I do. Bob? I'm on the edge of my seat, yes.
My dream is to retire. Maybe it comes before retirement age, but in a place where I can have a bed and breakfast for artists.
Oh, cool.
And this is completely selfish because I just want to I want to have a big table. We call it the big table. I actually do big table art talks. I want to have a big table because I like to be the hostess. I like to cook, and I like to, make people comfortable, and we just talk about art around the big table all night long.
So it's like a Lionel Richie song.
I don't know how to monetize that, but it sounds like a lot of fun. That's my dream.
Wow. So you wouldn't be retiring because you said if you're running your bed and breakfast, that sounds like you'd still be pretty busy. Or you'd hire people maybe.
I'm going to have to hire someone for that.
But bring in either art lovers or artists, and the whole thing will be discussing art. I'm sure there'll be a bunch of art on the walls, So.
Yeah, it might not be bed and breakfast. It might be like bed and dinner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have to sit at the big table.
And they can sleep in because that's what artists do. To heck with the breakfast. Well, that's awesome. And so I'm going to give people, when I be asking you here in a second where they can find you and get more information on you. But you, so the things that you offer, so we know you got the one ebook, I'd Rather Be in the Studio, The Artist No Excuse Guide to Self-Promotion. You do the one-on-one coaching. But do you also have online courses, or what other offerings do you have on your website, or do you have live workshops? Did we miss anything?
Yeah, I have the Art Career Success System that I teach. Well, after this year, it's going to be once a year, but this year I'm teaching it twice a year. It's a 5-month program.
Wow.
I'm teaching Creative Content Camp, which is about building online content this summer. Summer of 2016. I'll make this evergreen. And then I teach an organizing class because I geek out on that stuff, and no one else does it. But my live event is every fall in November called Art Biz Breakthrough. And people come from all over to Golden, Colorado for 3 days of working on their businesses.
Oh, cool. Wow. So that's your main live event.
That's my main live event. I do.
And then where could people find you online?
artbizcoach.com. I think you can find everything else. You can find my Facebook, my Instagram, my Twitter, everything else there.
Artbizcoach.com. Alyson Stanfield. Alyson, thank you so much. This has been great to connect with you and getting to know you more and talking shop. I love all these unexpected things that we chatted about. Very inspiring.
Yeah, same for me, Bob. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks for listening. And as always, I'll be back with another interview or another podcast of me expounding on some aspect of creativity and empowerment. Be back with you real soon. So this is Bob Baker saying so long for now.
Is what